Just on Mark Miller, I mean, he's one of the most, I suppose, out there guys, the most visible guys in terms of like new comic work being adapted into films. And like my flatmate has just done his PhD in comic book film adaptation. You can get a PhD in anything nowadays, clearly. But it's becoming, you know, I mean, it has been for like the past 10 years almost since X-Men. Comic book films have been, that's for you, have been the dominant the dominant kind of mainstream thing. I mean, and you've had Red made recently. And how do you think that all these films come out? Like this summer we've got Captain America, Thor, X-Men First Class, Green Lantern, and various other things coming out. I mean, how do you feel that impacts, and does it have any positive feedback to the comic book industry? Do you think
I want to say no and then move on. I don't think it does, honestly. With these things that you're talking about, the brands are so divorced from comics at this point. I mean, there will be people who went to the Batman film who don't even know they're still making Batman comics, you know?
Yeah.
The brands are so divorced from the comics that there's probably no feedback effect at all.
I just want to ask Brian, because you're in a comic shop, and do you find that when people, you know, there's a comic book film out, do you think it's, like, do you notice an uptake in sales, or is it negligible?
Rarely.
There you go.
Rarely, yeah. That's kind of interesting. I mean,
and also you've got to remember, there are not a lot of comic shops.
Yeah, there's one in the west of Ireland.
Diamond Distributors, which is essentially the distributor of comics in the Western world, there are probably no more than 1,800 actual comic book stores being serviced by Diamond.
Yeah. It's a weird thing that, I mean, you can have millions of people who know about Batman, Wonder Woman, Captain America, and yet the comics, which is like the base form of them, will still only sell at most 70,000.
Yeah, because you can't find a fucking comic shop.
Yeah. But Scott McCloud makes a point. Why don't we advertise comics on television?
Because it's not the same as advertising milk. It's, there's not a milk board.
So we need someone to lobby for comic books.
You can't do that because there are all these different publishers. Advertising on TV costs a lot of money, and comics are a very financially tight business in a lot of ways.
Shane, you have a question?
I have a little bit off topic.
Good.
Earlier in your career, I'm not sure, I don't know the dates, but you wrote a lot of personal comics about space travel, orbiter, ocean, the history of space. And just current news, the space shuttle Discovery has landed for the last time.
Good.
What?
I'm sorry, the space shuttle was a fucking death trap. It should never have been flown.
Am I correct in saying that you think that, I think I read a quote here, is that space travel is necessary because having all the gene pool of breeding of people on one planet is not a fucking good idea?
Well, yeah. Keeping all your breeding pairs in one place.
This is Ireland, be careful, okay?
Moving on.
To finish the questions, do you think Europeans should go to space, or are there things we should sort out before we do?
Oh, I'm sick of that argument. Why would we go to space when so many things are broken here? What, you can't walk and chew gum at the same time? You're telling me, really, the human race can only do one thing at a time?
TV made me stupid.
Yeah, I always thought that was a bullshit argument. It really was. But no, I'm glad to see the space shuttle go away.
Guy in the blue t-shirt again.
Yeah.
This time.
Sorry, I'm just wondering, as a writer, do you feel it's important sometimes to reference things like George Louis Borges, some of his work, like from back in the 60s, or different classic books throughout stories that you write now, as long as coming up with new kind of storylines, just kind of referencing different things that may have appeared throughout the history of writing?
No. I'm sorry, I would love to give you a more specific answer, but no, I don't consider that important. What the story needs is important. If the story requires a reference to Borges, then that's fine. But it's not an overweening goal when you start writing something. Oh my God, I've got to work something to do with the Greek classics into this. No.
Sarah's question there.
Just wondering, it's kind of tying back into your topic
Yeah, we have been very lucky with comics for a long time because a scanned comic is a really fucking big file. An MP3 is like 4 or 5 megs tops. A scanned comic is like 25 meg. It's not something you can download waiting for the bus.
How do you feel about people scanning comics?
Well, it's bugger all you can do about it.
Yeah.
It's been useful to me because it means I can actually have reference copies of my stuff without having to go up into the attic because I'm essentially very lazy.
Gentleman at the back there? Yeah.
You do a lot on Whitechapel to support or to encourage creativity and artists on the internet, and you give them a bit of a forum for them to show their work. I was just wondering how much that sort of thing is paid attention to, what sort of routes you were exposed to of novice comic artists and burgeoning writers to get into comics. Are you exposed to much of that, and are many of your contemporaries exposed to that?
Could you boil that down to one line for me?
No.
Okay.
Are you exposed to much of nascent kind of new work from people through the internet that you wouldn't otherwise be?
How valid do you think the internet is as a forum for bringing up comic artists and writers into?
It's almost sort of like Middle World.
Well, it's when the small press mostly went away, I was sad. There was something George Burns used to say about vaudeville when vaudeville went away. There's no place for the kids to go and be lousy anymore. There's no learning space. Because, particularly in comics, you only learn by seeing it in print or now on a screen. So the internet is in fact the only valid place now to discover burgeoning artists and for these people to discover each other, because it's the only place to go and be lousy.
It's something I've noticed with Clint Mark's book, that he has this forum where he will take open submissions, like 2000 AD used to, which is where quite a lot of people came from in the first place. Do you think that's still as relevant now as it was back in the day in terms of with the internet? Yeah, I think it's quite a bold move on his part.
I don't read Miller World and I haven't read Clint, so I can't really speak to that.